Hey guys, it's Brandon. So this is part 2 of our look at my 1 hour games in the Exchange French of late. And this is sort of the same type of opening in the Exchange French, but with a slightly different pawn structure in the center. And I thought it was interesting and maybe hopefully instructive to see how the plans sort of change given this pawn structure. So on with the game, e4, e6, and my opponent played 2 knight f3. So clearly this isn't somebody who has studied any real theory. I mean, d4 is the standard here. This may be just the type of person who just plays e4 and knight f3 regardless of what the opponent plays. So I played, e5, d5. This is the French defense, threatening now to take and also with tempo on this knight. So that can't be allowed. Knight c3 is possible here. I suppose, and then d4 would maybe transpose into something depending on what's played, but he decided to exchange and then play d4. So we sort of have the exact same position now as we saw in the last game, with these pawns sort of on in symmetrical formations on both sides of the board, and this light square bishop no longer really being a problem for me. So it's really hard to argue that white has much of an advantage here. And if you remember, the last game was played with the continuation went c4 and bishop check. Bishops came off, and d takes c4, castles, and then the piling up on this isolated pawn. In this game, we saw something different. We still saw c4, but not right away. And what happened after c4 sort of changed a little bit. He played g3, just preparing to fianchetto the bishop. I played bishop d6, and he played bishop g2, and now we both castled. It's always good to castle as quickly as possible because the rook comes to the e-file with check, as we saw in the last game, and that can be annoying. So now c6, and just sort of solidifying this pawn on d5, and I can deploy my bishop out here onto f5 or even g4 if I really wanted to. Okay, it takes away the knight's best development square, but with the knight here blocking the c-pawn, I'm not really sure how to continue after that. He played the move queen d3, which is actually slightly annoying because it takes away the f5 square, which is I was actually ready to play this bishop f5 and was sort of taken away from me. So bishop e6 is what I settled for, strong pointing this pawn. Okay, it looks kind of bad, but it gets a piece out and it'll no longer be blocked in when this knight comes in here. He played the move b3, and when you see a move like that, you're often thinking, okay, he wants to put the other bishop on the fianchetto, and I thought that would be fine because it's just going to be it's going to be biting on dirt on this d4 pawn, and I just didn't think this move was played in order to do that. It seemed more likely that he was going to play for c4. And now that I actually looked at it, maybe he could have played for this move bishop to a4, a3. The idea is to get this good bishop for his sort of bad bishop, and because I can't move out of the way because I just pinned to the rook. So you often see this kind of thing in the advanced French where black plays this kind of move, and same idea only with light square bishops to try to trade off his bad light square bishop. I think that's the Jacobian system of the advanced French defense. So that may have been interesting and may have been a good move for him after I played knight b d7. But he played instead c4, which is for some reason what I thought he would do. And if I take on c4, he gets these two pawns just sort of hanging out in the center. And he'd have a nice pawn center, and he could at some point maybe try to play for d5 and just sort of get an attack like that. So in any case, I wasn't really interested in giving him that. So I just played a pretty standard development move, rook to e1. And he played c5. So now we have a completely different pawn structure, and that's sort of the only difference between the two setups. Okay, this bishop's being counted in this setup, but we're having this blocked sort of central pawn formation here, which means that the position is going to be of sort of a closed nature, and both sides have to come up with something to do. So, what are the characteristics of this position? Well, white gets more queenside space, and he could be thinking about plans involving pushing these pawns down the board. Maybe at some point leveraging open after this, trying to exchange and leverage open, getting a rook on the b file, and try to invade on the b file. And since this is where he has more space, general theory says this is where he should be playing. And in exchange, black gets some counterplay on this d4 pawn, which is you would say backwards. It's not on an open file, but it's backwards. So it's a bit of a target. Okay, it can't be protected by any pawns on either of these files. So in light of that, I spent a lot of time deciding between bishop to c7 and the move that I played. The computer liked bishop c7 slightly better than what I played, which was bishop to f8. And my idea for bishop to f8 was to redeploy the bishop with g6, bishop g7, and just add some pressure onto this g4 pawn. This position is closed, given the center formation here, so I can get away with this sort of slow maneuvering. It's not super close, but I thought I had enough time to get away with that. So the computer liked bishop c7 a little bit better for some reason, not like much, like 0.2 better, but I didn't really see a future for the bishop on this diagonal, with the dark squares being clamped down on here and this square being covered, of course, by the g-pawn. I didn't really see, okay, it would stop this bishop from coming out here, so that would be a plus, and maybe it could be redeployed out here onto the queen side, but I chose for pressure on the d4 point. So bishop f8. He played rook to e1, g6, and now bishop g5. Okay, developing his dark square bishop, pinning the knight. Bishop g7, knight bd2. Why the knight came to d2 instead of c3, I'm not sure. But that's what he played. Now I actually played bishop f5 to get my bishop on the square I wanted it to be with tempo, because now his queen's there. He played rook to e8, check, exchanging the queens. I had to take the rook back. I couldn't take his queen because it was check. So, and then he played queen c3, keeping his queen on the queen side. I think that's okay. Now I played knight to e4, just taking away the possibility of this bishop to take anything, and I'm okay with trading pieces. Okay, I have a little bit less space, and when I have less space, piece trades don't bother me so much. He played knight e4, bishop e4, rook e1. Okay, pinning the bishop to the queen, so I just got out of that pin as best as I could. He played bishop to h3, another annoying pin. So my opponent actually is playing pretty well here, given the circumstances. I think given the closed nature of the queen side, these two bishops are actually maximally placed, are placed for like sort of maximum annoyance. They're on. I can't really see any better diagonals for them to be on. And in fact, if I were to evaluate my own evaluation, I would say white's a little bit better here. I think the computer said white is slightly better, but it's definitely annoying. So my queen is sort of dancing around a little bit. So queen c7, he played bishop f4, just making my queen just dance around some more. So he played knight d2. I guess now he's just looking to trade off this bishop. And I thought for a while here about playing some move, any other move, see if I could find any other move than what I played. Because what I played was knight to f6. And the move I wanted to be able to play, if I had everything my way in a perfect world, would be knight f8 to e6, with added pressure on the d pawn from the bishop and the knight. So, okay, that may take some arranging, But, if he decided to give up the bishop for the knight, that would be okay too with me, because you would give back his advantage of the bishop pair. So, in any case, he's threatening to take the bishop and also win the pawn. So, I just decided to defend the bishop with the knight and maybe figure out something else to do, some other way of getting pressure on d4. I'm not sure what I would have done if bishop g5. Now that I'm looking at it, pinning the knight. If I try to move the queen out of the way, he can take the knight. Bishop takes, and then, well, I actually didn't look at this variation when I was playing the game, but I'm going to switch on the computer right now and see what happens if he plays this. Okay, the computer's just saying, so just retreat the bishop, and everything's fine. So, actually, maybe that's annoying after bishop takes, but it's giving the best move as bishop takes, and white is better by about half a pawn. Okay, so anyway, that's not what happened in the game. He played, actually, after knight f6, he played knight takes e4, knight takes e4. And now, I think most of his advantage, well, he still has the advantage of these bishops, so he's probably these very annoying bishops that are cutting off a lot of squares for my rook and queen to sit on. Just covering a lot of squares in my positions, especially these very strong dark squares here. But anyway, he had to do something about his queen, so he played a move putting pressure on the b7 pawn, which of course I can't defend with the rook because that just drops the exchange. So that's forcing either b5 or b6. I think they both probably lead to the same thing, so I just played b6 and he took. And yeah, now maybe it seems like maybe his advantage has kind of dwindled a little bit. He has to defend the a pawn, and given the fact that the queen is sort of guarding the d4 pawn, it's tough to move the queen anywhere. Okay, queen can't even move anywhere to really defend the pawn because the knight on e4 is so nice it's covering these squares. So, and this is, of course, looks very passive. So best for him probably would have been rook to e2. Okay, if b6, then it seems like the queen could very easily become overloaded, trying to watch out for, a6, trying to watch out for both of these pawns at the same time. But I guess either of those moves would have been much better than what he played. He played the move a4, which in annotation would be given a double question mark because of, and the computer is pointing it out, but the move bishop to f8 actually traps the queen. The queen has nowhere to go. These squares are nicely cut off by the knight. She's sort of blocked in by the pawns. Okay, so she just completely cut off from any squares to go to. So that would have been an excellent and awesome move if I saw it on the board, but I didn't. I was very happy to play the move f5. Well, not very happy, but I'd been thinking about this move for some time now because I wanted to be able to eclipse this bishop and be able to put my rook here on to c8 because I thought this pawn is a little bit of a weakness and I want to be able to guard it with the rook. So that's why I played this move f5. This move is maybe a little bit tricky to spot. Maybe not. If you see the queen, from now on, when I see this sort of box being built by his own pawns there, I may be a little bit quicker to look closely at these moves. So in any case, he played queen a3, and I think maybe he noticed that his queen was in trouble, and he was just trying to get her some kind of escape route. But unfortunately, my pressure on d4 is now paying off because trying to get the queen out of the way has left this d4 pawn hanging. So I've won a pawn, and an interesting sort of psychological and physiological reaction, I think, happens very often when you're playing a game or your opponent's playing a game and they sort of drop material like that. Even in a long time control game, sort of an unexpected and unpleasant shock, and it sort of leads to in my experience, sort of more mistakes. And what my opponent played here was rook to d1. And that's sort of just a knee-jerk reaction, lashing out at being angry and having lost this pawn. But of course, it just drops this pawn with check because of this knight and the bishop coordinating on the f2 square. So now he's forced to move the king, and I get to retreat this bishop, hitting the queen with tempo. He played b4 just to eclipse it. And what I played here was bishop to f8. Okay, maybe I didn't play the most pressing variation here, and if I turn on the computer and look closely, I'm sure it recommended me doing something else. But this knight, having now taken this f-pawn, is an absolute monster and can never be removed except by this bishop. And once, if this bishop ever were to take, either way I take, I'm getting a huge passed pawn. So this knight is actually just a monster in his position, and I'm up 2 pawns. So I was happy with a little bit of prophylaxis here. The idea is that these dark squares around my king are pretty weak. So I'll just bring the bishop back and sort of guard these dark squares as best I can. So he plays the move now g4, and now he's just totally lost the thread of the game, having been down 2 pawns now. Mistakes just sort of leading to frustration and more mistakes. After f takes and g takes, the computer says that this move here is the best move, queen to f6. I played queen to h4, threatening mate and this bishop. And he gets a few checks in here. King to h8. Okay, bishop check. Now I'm glad I have this bishop back. And after king to g7, I thought maybe he could play queen to b2 check, also defending the mate. And then my plan was to play king h6, which looks a little funny, but I think my king is the safer king. I mean, his king is just way out in the open. My rooks are coming quickly to the f-file. My rook is coming quickly to the f-file, and this knight is just a powerhouse. So I thought I'd be just fine in the attack, and I'd have a winning attack after just king h6. Instead, he played king g1, just trying to run away. And again, I didn't play the strongest continuation. I think the computer... What did the computer recommend here? Like, queen to g5 check or something. Oh, I forgot to mention, there was one resource after, that I forgot. After bishop g7, this move looks good. To play, to put some extra pressure on this pinned bishop. But unfortunately, what was the tactic that this failed to? Let me see. I can't really remember. After rook to f8 check, king g1, and queen g5 check, I'm hitting this bishop twice, and it's going to fall. So that move, queen, doesn't actually work. And maybe I think I probably would have found that in the game, because it was a 1 hour time control game and I still had plenty of time, but in any case I didn't have to. So back to the game. He played king g1, just trying to run away from this mate and give his king an escape square on h2. And I didn't play the strongest continuation, but I wasn't really looking hard because I thought this attack was just winning virtually almost no matter what I did. So I played queen f2 check, king h1, and rook to f8, just getting ready to bring the rook into the attack, somehow, and with some kind of mate. The onus is on him to really stay alive here, and there's no check anymore on this diagonal. Even the knight is covering this square. Oops. So all these arrows are going crazy. So in any case, the move he played here was queen h3, and this move is immediately losing. But it takes one accurate move for white, which I managed to find. The move is queen e2. The great thing about this move is that it's now freeing the square for this knight to come in and fork the king and the queen. and in addition, it's attacking this unprotected rook. Actually, the best move for him to avoid getting mated would have been well, I guess to put off the mate would have been to just save the rook. But what he played was queen to g4, just hoping in desperation sort of for a queen trade. But this actually is a mate in 3. So, well, it's 4 if you count his moves, I guess. So, I can't really pause the game because the computer's automatically giving away my moves here. But I would have said paused it and see if you guys could find it. But the move, and I managed to find it, is rook f1 check, forcing rook takes f1, queen takes f1, forcing queen blocks, and then the knight comes in very nicely. Powerhouse knight from e4 comes in and delivers the mate. It can't be taken because the queen is pinned to the king, and the king can't escape. This move here is not possible because it's pinned, and the king is cut off from escape. I very nearly played instead after queen. I very nearly just took the free rook with the continuation here. The first combination I saw was this, where after queen takes, I had this fork again, and I'd just be up a rook. And to be honest, I probably would have played that without thinking very much in a blitz game, because it doesn't force you to find the tactics and the mates, and that's not my strong suit. But in a 1 hour game, I figured something's got to be mating here. So I had the time to check the checks, check the continuations, and find the nice mate. So, okay, in the first game we had sort of an isolated queen's pawn, and in this game we had a very different structure. We're just sort of going through it here with c4 and c5, leading to this weak pawn on d4 in the closed sort of formation. So my plan was to play against this d4 weakness. And, okay, my opponent traded here, and here, okay, I missed the opportunity for a bishop to f8, trapping and winning the queen, winning immediately. And I played f5, and he dropped the pawn, and that sort of just led to more weaknesses, more pawns dropping. And he finally played this move was immediately losing, just weakening the king side and giving my queen roads into his king. And finally, just coming in with the pieces. All it took was one accurate move, queen e2, for the winning moves and final mate to come into play. So, hope you guys enjoyed that game and got something out of it. And maybe I'll get back to some more blitz, some live blitz games in the coming few days, and some master games. But this was just sort of an experiment to see how it works, recapping 1 hour long games. So, hope you guys enjoyed it and got something out of it, and we'll see you next time.